Hi, welcome to Infodumpies. My name's Brianne. I'm autistic, I have ADHD, my pronouns are she, her, and I think my worst experience while doing psychedelics was actually watching Great British Bake Off.
Hi, I'm Violet. I have ADHD. My pronouns are she, her, and the only kind of mushroom I won't eat is the little purple poisony mushrooms in Super Mario.
The only mushroom?
The only mushrooms I won't eat. I'll eat anything else, pretty much.
Even the poisonous ones that exist in the real world?
You know what? You got me there. I didn't consider those, honestly.
Real mushrooms.
Yeah, no, I was thinking like Super Mario mushrooms. But today I am talking mushrooms, though. In general, I've got some mushroom news that I want to talk about that I'm really excited about.
If you're listening, this is not a repeat of the episode generally about mushrooms that Violet did a while ago.
Yeah, no,
I don't want
is
you to
about...
think you're re-listening. This is very specific breaking mushroom news.
Yes, and I want to give a little context. This is majorly about magic mushrooms. So, before I talk about the new news with mushrooms, I want to talk about the history of psilocybin mushrooms, the magic mushrooms that I'm sure you've heard of in movies and TV shows and from personal experience, Brianne,
Yes.
potentially. These are mushrooms that are very different from, a portobello, the type of thing you would have maybe in an Italian dish. These are mushrooms that give you hallucinations. You see blurred shapes and colors and all sorts of motion. I haven't done magic mushrooms myself. Brianne, would you like to talk a little bit about what you saw when you did mushrooms?
Yeah, so whenever I've done mushrooms, I don't feel like it's been as intense as, say, straight up doing LSD. But with mushrooms, it was like, it's not like I was seeing anything that wasn't there. It was like just things had motion that wouldn't otherwise, if that makes sense. So like the ceiling at our old house had a swirly pattern, and those would kind of swirl and spiral a little bit. Colors would pop more, be more vibrant. All of my sensory stuff was more pleasantly enhanced. There's actually a lot about autism and psychedelics and how our experience of psychedelics might be different than someone who's not autistic in their experience of psychedelics.
Very true.
There's an autism psychedelic society. So my experience might not be like that of an holistic person's, but generally I basically was just like hardcore stimming on stuff for several hours. Like one time I was just having a really nice time listening to Tori Amos and playing with Silly Putty.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah, it was a really great day. It was my birthday. I also ate birthday cake, and I took a very long shower because the shower was extremely interesting.
Oh, I can imagine. That's a lot of motion and sensory stuff happening.
Yeah, it was really nice. But yeah, big fan.
Gotcha. Psilocybin mushrooms have been around for a long time. The first mention of hallucinogenic mushrooms in medicinal literature was in the London Medical and Physical Journal in 1799. A man had served Psilocybe semilensita. I'm going to mispronounce a lot of mushroom scientific names here, and I'm so sorry. A psilocybin mushroom, which is a family of mushrooms, he had picked for breakfast in London's Green Park to his family.
Oh, no.
Not realizing what they were, because it wasn't documented properly yet. The apothecary who treated them later described how the youngest child was, quote, attacked with fits of immoderate laughter, nor could the threats of his father or mother refrain him.
And okay, most of the time, those grow on poop.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how. So it should be mentioned that there are a whole host of different varieties of psilocybin mushrooms, some of which grow on wood rather than poop.
I know, but just imagining the type this guy at that time and his location would have had access to makes it, odd.
Definitely an odd choice. Random mushrooms you find out in the
It's funny
park.
Also, it's probably the first time that a European source had marked psychedelic mushrooms, because
absolutely, yes.
Even in my own history, like Taino people would have a psychedelic from a tree they would snort. So a lot of indigenous people, I am sure, which I'm sure you're going to cover.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This goes back way before 1799. So this is mainly just talking about psilocybin specifically and like the history of it as we modern American society know it generally. But in 1955, ethnomycologists Valentina Pavlovna Wasson and R. Gordon Wasson became the first known European Americans to actively participate in an indigenous mushroom ceremony. And they talked a lot about their experience doing this. This was a ceremony where they had psychoactive mushrooms, specifically psilocybin mushrooms, and they brought them back from Mexico. They were identified by I think a botanist named Albert Hoffman, who identified the active components as psilocybin and psilocin as the two main active components in those mushrooms. You may recognize the name Timothy Leary. He is a person, he's an American psychologist and author known for a really strong advocacy of psychedelic drugs such as LSD, mushrooms, etc. Richard Nixon called him the most dangerous man in America at one point. So
hell yeah.
Yeah. He traveled to Mexico to experience psilocybin mushrooms himself. And when he returned to Harvard in 1960, he and Richard Alpert started the Harvard Psilocybin Project, which promoted psychological and religious studies of psilocybin and other psychedelic drugs. That brought a lot of the research from around the world and a lot of the social aspects of it. So cultural references and historical uses of it throughout various cultures started getting documented at that point in European Western literature. After that point, it became very popular. By the early 1970s, many psilocybin mushrooms were described from North America, Europe, Asia, and they were widely collected. There was even tons of books at the time that were describing methods of cultivating large quantities of Psilocybe Cubensis, which is probably the most commonly known variety of psilocybin mushroom.
Yeah,
and at this point,
certainly haven't done any research on that.
Exactly. At this point, I have to say a disclaimer. The following information is for educational purposes only. Psilocybin and all other psychoactive fungi are considered Schedule I controlled substances in the United States and illegal in many other jurisdictions. The purpose of this episode is not to encourage consumption of these illegal substances.
Okay.
Just have to do that disclaimer there so we don't get in trouble.
Schedule these nuts.
1934, we have some like missionary dudes trying to convert people to Christianity or whatever in the Western Highlands of Papua New Guinea. They encountered a really perplexing thing. They saw people who, after consuming a wild mushroom, which they called nonda, the local people would appear to temporarily go insane, quote unquote, exhibiting a sudden striking change in mood and behavior. Sudden accounts of the quote-unquote mushroom madness phenomenon, as it was termed at the time, again, 1934, provided details into the psychological effects of this mushroom. Specifically, it was reported that those who had this mushroom called nonda would experience Lilliputian hallucinations, which is a clinically defined psychiatric syndrome named after the tiny people in Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah.
Characterized by the perception of numerous little people autonomously moving about and interacting in the real world environment.
Whoa.
Yes. One elder tribesman in Papua New Guinea describes this effect, explaining how he, quote, saw tiny people with mushrooms around their faces. They were teasing him and he was trying to chase them away. Pretty fucking cool, right? By the 1960s, scientists were working to identify the species of mushrooms that were involved with this and what chemicals were responsible for those bizarrely specific effects. However, both of those questions have remained unanswered up until very recently.
Ooh.
Which leads us to our news. So what exactly is this mushroom? How widespread is the cultural knowledge of its effects? And why does it produce such fantastical visions? Aside from that first documentation in the 60s, there were some reports in the 1990s of a similar mushroom in southern China. But Colin Domnauer, a doctoral researcher at the Natural History Museum of Utah, has spent the last 4 years investigating and trying to identify this mushroom. And he done dang did it.
Well, way to go.
Yeah. And this is a mushroom. 90% of the people who take this mushroom, I think specifically 96% of the people who, this is from a mushroom that he found in southern China, which has been known and sold there for decades, by the way. So this is just being known to us in the English-speaking world. This is a mushroom where 96% of the people that take it see little people, clowns, elves, gnomes, or other fairy-like figures roughly 2 centimeters tall.
Fucking cool.
Right? Like,
this makes me want to write fiction about it.
Right? It's so neat.
Specific.
And
I think if I took it, I would see
specific.
Fraggles.
Oh my God. I don't even know what I would see. I'm so curious.
Just guessing that my brain would either produce Fraggles or the most horrid demons I could conjure up.
So I haven't seen a lot of reports of people saying like, quote unquote, bad trips on this sort of thing. And I'll get into some of the accounts that people describe here. But definitely strange stuff, but it doesn't sound like it's something that is generally terrifying.
No,
like,
I
there's
think
some typical...
a lot of how a trip goes has to do with your own mental state at the time that you are taking them, and also your environment, because a lot of a bad trip is stress. So my goof is just that there's something so stressed out in me that I'm like, the demons!
Here's the thing, though. That thought process is based on the effects of psilocybin mushrooms or psilocin.
Oh, true. I mean, that's also what they say for LSD, though.
That's true. That is true. I would say I have something that's going to blow your mind here in a bit that's relevant to this, and I don't want to spoil it. So Yunnan province in China is home to 40% of the world's wild edible fungi. It's a place for mushroom lovers. Like, if you like mushrooms, It's a great place to go. I would love someday to visit Yunnan, China. They have literally no less than 5 mushroom markets, like a farmer's market with nothing but wild mushrooms.
Oh,
yeah.
yummy.
It sounds amazing. And I literally, if you go to Google Maps and you go to Yunnan, China, and you just drop one of those like street view pins down, you'll probably end up in a market and there will probably be somebody selling mushrooms, which I think is dope. Because that's
cool.
what I did. I did that, and I turned the camera and boom, there's a guy selling mushrooms, and I was like, holy shit. It's always been a remarkable place for people who love mushrooms. But in the last decade or so, the summer rains have brought more than just mushrooms. They've been accompanied by an explosion of news articles that read something like a children's fairy tale. People locally have been reporting this one mushroom called Jian Shu Xing. They eat it, and if you eat it undercooked, you have unbelievably bizarre experiences, most notably characterized by seeing Zhao Ren Ren, or little people.
Yeah.
Yeah. A professor in Yunnan.
2 words I actually remembered from when I took Mandarin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Zhao Ren Ren.
Ren is person, and then you say it twice to make it plural.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. I didn't know that. That's really neat. So yeah, little people. A professor in Yunnan recounted how one evening during dinner, and it should be mentioned that Jianshu Qing is openly sold in markets and restaurants there. But if it's undercooked slightly or underprepared in some way, you can have the psychoactive effects. But if it's cooked, it's just a fucking delicious mushroom, apparently, that tastes like bacon, supposedly.
So kind of like, there's, if you undercook shiitake, there's a pretty gnarly rash you can get.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's very specific. It looks like it hurts like a motherfucker. But yeah,
Ooh,
make sure you cook your mushrooms, folks. Don't eat them raw.
Yeah, never eat them raw. So after having a mushroom-filled dinner at one point, he began seeing swirling shapes and colors, which is typical of, a mushroom experience. But the psychoactive effects of the mushrooms are familiar to most of the locals there. And this is a professor from Yunnan, right?
Yeah.
He began looking around for Zhao Ren Ren, but he was disappointed that he didn't see anything until at one point he lifted the tablecloth and peeked underneath, seeing, quote, hundreds of Zhao Ren Ren marching like soldiers. When I lifted the tablecloth higher, the heads came off and stuck to the bottom of the cloth, and the bodies kept marching in place. I did this many times at 2-minute intervals, and each time there they were, marching and grinning. I measured them too. They were 2 centimeters high.
Whoa.
Right? According to records at Yunnan Hospital, 96% of patients affected by this mushroom report seeing an abundance of little people or elves, often dancing, jumping, or marching around their real-world environment.
So they figured out why? It's specifically that?
Not yet, but they know some of what it's not. They're narrowing it down at this point. But And there's more evidence to support that this is a specific to this mushroom. It wasn't until mycologists in Yunnan purchased and sequenced the mushrooms being sold in an open-air street market, where, again, it's been sold for decades, that the species was officially described and recognized as being new to science, officially. The formal Latin name is Lanmaoa asiatica. You'll never guess what its closest mushroom relative is.
Psilocybe cubensis?
No, it's Utah's state mushroom. Official state mushroom of Utah, the porcini mushroom.
Just a porcini?
Yeah.
Like I get it, like I could get at the grocery store?
Yep. And I don't think you see little people if you eat those raw.
I don't.
Really weird, right? So
it's like I'm porcini's fucked up little cousin.
Right? Even though it's considered kind of a recent discovery in the scientific world, the knowledge and use of the mushroom likely has very deep roots in Chinese culture. There is a Taoist text from the 3rd century CE that refers to a, quote, flesh spirit mushroom, which, according to the text, if consumed raw, allows one to, quote, see a little person and, quote, attain transcendence immediately. Which sounds dope to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like most of the psychedelic stuff that's out there, people have known for a long time, because
absolutely,
we've tried. We're like, oh, let's see if that's edible. Mark, go try this, and then Mark is tripping balls, and you go, well, maybe not for our salad, but if we want to trip balls later, Mark discovered a very cool mushroom.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it's so cool, and like for me, this is like kind of opening up a whole question of like, all right, so if there's a mushroom that does this specific effect, how many others are there that we don't even know about that are just in other cultures, right? This is just one mushroom that does one particular thing. And literally when Colin Donmauer was going to China to try and like get samples for himself to learn about this, he literally was having trouble picking it out from other like porcini mushrooms in the mushroom market until he asked one of the people, I want the one that makes me see little people. And they were like, oh, yeah, I know that one. It's this one.
Oh, yeah. The little people mushroom, yes.
This sounds like real magic, honestly. Like,
the one that opens a portal to the Fey realm? Oh, I have it right here.
Right?
Next to the creminis.
It's so mind-blowing. You can imagine why I've had such a hard time not telling you about this.
I want to eat one so badly.
Right? I genuinely want to try one at some point. Again, disclaimer, it's illegal when we cannot and we will not be trying it in the US.
Fine. Whatever.
Not whatever. It's illegal. We're totally not going to try it or try to find it. It should be mentioned, though, this is something that is super, super not regulated. And Colin actually ordered samples of this mushroom in the mail from China. He found that not only did a lot of the samples that he received in the mail not contain any of the actual mushroom that does this, it actually contains several species of toxic poisonous mushrooms.
Oh, Jesus.
So please do not try and order this mushroom overseas.
Yeah,
you could poison yourself.
I'm curious, but not that curious. So, yeah.
Again, first off, illegal. Second off, you could poison yourself. You really got to talk to an expert and go somewhere where it's legal. Colin, the researcher, he also, in his research, encountered reports of identical phenomena from a third location in the world, aside from Papua New Guinea and China, indigenous communities in the Philippines, northern Cordillera. There, a wild mushroom called setastem occasionally produced visions of ancicit, their term for little people. Local knowledge characterizes the mushroom as a valued edible mushroom that, when undercooked, will generate unusual effects. And he actually went there last year in 2024 to collect specimens. When he sequenced the DNA of the mushrooms from the Philippines, he found that not only was it very similar, it was the exact same species as the one in China, Lanmaoa asiatica.
Wild.
So the identical species to the one found in Yunnan, separated by over 2,000 kilometers of ocean and mountain ranges, which rules out cultural transmission or coincidental folklore. There are 3 very geographically isolated communities with no historical contact with each other, independently documenting the same hallucinations from the same fungal species. It should be mentioned, though, the one in Papua New Guinea, it wasn't confirmed that that was the exact same, we
But it
don't
would
have a
be
sample.
fucking
But
wild if it wasn't.
right?
Um,
Exactly.
but with what we learned from the previous mushroom episode, it makes
Hmm.
sense
Hmm.
that spores, while it is wild that they are that different, but in the grand history of humanity and mushrooms on Earth,
True.
that those spores either in the atmosphere or, animals tracking spores certain places and stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It is wild that there's 3 different places to document the same exact phenomena with the same mushroom. But I think I'm less shocked that the mushroom is all of those places, because from what I learned from the previous episode, mushrooms get their jizz everywhere.
Yeah, but it's really weird because some mushrooms are just ubiquitous and everywhere and they grow super easily. But then there's other kinds of mushrooms. Like in my research on psilocybin mushrooms, there's a particular variety that has only ever once been found in nature, and it was in
Whoa.
Florida. Yeah. Now, it has been it was found by a mycologist who propagated it and like has since grown it elsewhere, and it's apparently not too difficult to get at this point, but it has never again been found in nature. It has only been grown in like a mycological setting, but it was originally found in Florida, of all places.
Of course. Not to me that makes sense. Of course it would be
Yeah.
Florida.
Here's where we get into a bit of the twist. So you would think that this probably has some sort of known psychoactive compound, right?
One would assume.
One would assume. However, they did a chemical analysis of this mushroom at the Natural History Museum of Utah, and they detected no traces of any known psychoactive compounds whatsoever. It doesn't have psilocybin. It doesn't have any of its related tryptamines. It doesn't have mucimol. It doesn't have ibotenic acid found in the Amanita species. It doesn't have any known hallucinogenic molecules whatsoever.
Okay, it feels magical because it's clearly science I don't yet understand.
Yeah, so it really does seem pretty magical, though the most likely explanation that researchers are saying is the absence of anything that we know about suggests that it is potentially
the presence of something we haven't yet learned about.
Exactly. Yeah. A new class of psychoactive compounds that we have been heretofore unaware of.
Delicious.
Which is so cool.
Sign me up.
Yeah, exactly. There is a lot of stories locally in China of people eating this mushroom. Like it's apparently something that's very common among people from Yunnan specifically. It's so wild to me that the closest relative after they did a full genome sequencing is the American porcini mushroom.
Yeah, it's
like,
so wild.
Exactly.
I would put that in a sketty.
Right, exactly. And again, there's no reports of the porcini mushroom causing that same effect when uncooked.
You gotta boof it.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you haven't been boofing porcinis. That's how it happens.
Yeah, they're going to name the chemical bufosibin.
Well, there's bufotoxin.
That's true.
And
why not bufosibin?
Bufotenine.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Which,
bufotenine.
remember,
what was that again?
That is the compound in bufotoxin that's psychedelic, and it is the thing it is the thing that because I'm autistic, I have a high concentration of in my pee.
Yeah, exactly. You would think that with this mushroom being known to be quote unquote toxic or hallucinogenic, people would not eat it quite as often. But apparently it is one of the most popular mushrooms in like mushroom based cuisine in Yunnan. It's like considered a delicacy, essentially. It has like 900 different mushroom species, and it's still one of the most popular ones there because it has such a popular flavor. When it is cooked, it releases an umami aroma comparable to bacon, and as you continue to cook it down, the scent gradually fades into a distinct smell of walnuts. The taste has been described as bursting with nutty and umami flavor that are incredibly savory, and they make a great addition to dishes like hot pot, rice noodles. Honestly, the most popular way to eat them is just a quick stir fry, just enough to make them not psychoactive.
I was gonna say, I would love to just crisp that up in some olive oil, like in a cast iron pan, and just have a nice, the Maillard effect on that. That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
I would fuck up some of those, psychoactive or not.
Exactly, yeah. Now, one thing that this makes me think of is, I mentioned earlier that the descriptions of what people see are reminiscent of Lilliputian. It's called Lilliputian hallucinations. Lilliputian named after Lilliput, which is the island that, oh my gosh, I forget the main character's name from Gulliver's Travels.
Gulliver?
Something Gulliver. Yeah, I forget his first name though.
I
He has a
forget his first name. John Gulliver. I don't know.
John Gulliver. John Q. Gulliver. He goes to an island of little tiny people. He goes to an island with really big people. And on the island of little tiny people, I think they're described as being 6 inches tall, which is like taller than these hallucinations are, surely.
Okay, you want to know what? You want to know what Gulliver's first name is?
What's his first name?
Lemuel.
No, surely not. Not Lemuel.
Gulliver's Travels, originally titled Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World in 4 parts by Lemuel Governor, first a surgeon and then a captain of several ships.
Bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, you can see why someone was like, hey, Jonathan Swift, could you maybe,
2 words.
Just cut it. Let's edit that a little bit.
Yeah, Gulliver's Travels.
Gulliver's Travels, your boy Lemuel.
God, what a name. I don't think I've ever heard of someone being named Lemuel, but
and I don't think it's ever happened since, quite frankly.
Yeah, honestly.
Anyway, continue. I just had to know.
So the phenomenon that these mushrooms cause, it kind of has raised some fundamental questions about perception and consciousness, understandably. The hallucinations that they cause are so specific, and they generally are considered a really rare psychiatric syndrome, distinct from the visual distortions characteristic of classical psychedelics. So it's notably distinct from those kinds of visual distortions. And understanding how a heretofore unknown fungal compound reliably produces such specific perceptions, miniature little people running around doing things, rather than geometric patterns or emotional shifts, sensory shifts.
Yeah, and like with other psychedelics, it's really your mileage may vary.
Yeah, very much so. But 96% of people seeing the same kind of thing. I mean, it sounds like this is so different. I know earlier you were mentioning with psilocybin how you really have to be in the right mindset and be with the right people and kind of have like a good trip sitter and all of this stuff. You kind of have to set up to make sure you have a good time and not a bad time.
And also,
whereas this,
and also just like your emotional state too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But preparing emotionally, that seems like it's less relevant to this.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, you take this mushroom and you see this thing, which is like so strange. And it's kind of like, I think once we determine exactly how this works, it could kind of illuminate previously unknown parts of the way we process things visually and perceive things. And it reminded me a little bit of some research into schizophrenia. I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you are blind and blind from birth, you are something like 99% less likely to ever develop schizophrenia.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So there's something about the visual processing aspect of that prevents you from being able to be susceptible to those hallucinations. It's really interesting. And I think they're still working on understanding why that is. Obviously, there's a lot of research being done in terms of, schizophrenia. It's a hallucination. It's a disorder that often comes with hallucinations, visual hallucinations, audible hallucinations as well. And the interesting thing is, even if you can hear but are blind, you generally won't get audible hallucinations either.
Oh,
you won't get that form of schizophrenia. Yeah. It makes me also wonder, someone who is blind, if they took this mushroom, what, if anything, would they experience? Since it seems to be that the reports are almost entirely a visual phenomena.
Yeah. I wonder if that would be the same.
Right. So there was a 2018 study done in Western Australia that examined 468,000 children born between 1980 and 2001. And on average, 0.4% developed schizophrenia at some point in their lifetime growing up during the course of the study, and 1.9% developed psychosis. However, 66 children out of that 468,000 were born with cortical blindness, so blind from birth. None of them had either condition.
Interesting.
Among,
So
yeah,
it must do, like, yeah, it has to have something to do with the visual processing part of the brain.
yeah. And furthermore, 613 children with peripheral blindness, aka blindness caused by eye problems, a few developed psychosis, though schizophrenia was less common, which tracks with the normal statistic ratio. So the connection is still uncertain, but the theory currently is something called predictive coding, which explains how the brain processes sensory information. And it's essentially believed that if you are blind from birth and you never develop the part of your brain that processes visual information, you are just not susceptible to the type of brain conditions that result in schizophrenia or psychosis.
Yeah, that makes
So it's like a
sense.
protective effect,
Yeah,
essentially.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be
So
so
I just,
interesting.
for me, the few times in my life I've had like major, like real hallucinations, because I should say I have narcolepsy. And when I am very, very sleep deprived, which is to say I haven't slept very well for a couple days or something like that, it's very easy for me to get sleep deprived as someone with narcolepsy. I will generally see something like in a dark corner of the room. I'll see a figure that looks like a person or something, like what you would typically hear people describe as like sleep paralysis visuals, spooky stuff, scary stuff, not fun stuff. And it's something where I've kind of gotten used to it. And
You
I
will,
know,
like there was a little while ago where we were laying in bed and you're like, huh, my hallucinations are making it look like there's something moving around over on that side of the room. Okay, good night. You're just like, oh, that is what it is.
yeah. I think I remember that. I like sat up in bed and I was like, huh?
Yeah, and
Oh,
you just checked, you're
bye.
like, oh, there's nothing there. All right, good night.
Yeah. And all it took was me just going, oh, yeah, logically, there's no reason anything would be there. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense for what I'm saying. So I've also taken Wellbutrin before. And for some reason, for me, Wellbutrin caused vivid, wild hallucinations. Just the one time I took it, it was really, really strange. And apparently it's like a rare side effect of it. But yeah, this mushroom is just really, really interesting. And it's bringing up a lot of interesting questions about how we perceive things, how we see things, and how we think about perception in general, which is just really interesting to me. And I can't wait to see if we can discover more types of mushrooms that have all sorts of different effects. And not only that, but psilocybin mushrooms are very commonly used in treatments of things like PTSD and if people are, towards the end of their life and having medical issues and, on supportive care and things like that, psilocybin mushrooms have been shown really effective for people that are in those positions to bring them some sort of comfort, right?
Yeah.
In otherwise situations where there's not really a good treatment like PTSD. And, obviously with PTSD, there's psychological treatment, but there's no medical treatment for PTSD other than trying psilocybin mushrooms and things like that,
Yeah.
And I'm
So
wondering how much more is out there.
yeah, my therapist is certified for psychedelic assisted therapy, and it's really amazing the stuff that can be accomplished in 4 hours of someone, using ketamine or something under a medically assisted setting versus doing a daily thing that takes a lot of their time to try to manage it. The times I've done psychedelics, I've, for the next few months, not had autistic meltdowns. I usually get at least a month, and like meltdowns are something I deal with a lot. It's one of the more disabling parts of my autism. And with psychedelics, it's like, okay, I generally will get like a month off from having meltdowns after using psychedelics. And how much that adds back to how I can live my life. Like, because recovering from a meltdown is awful. It's exhausting. There's the constant stress. So for people with PTSD, if they can, get some relief for months for sitting down for that, like, there's a book I read years ago, probably over a decade ago, called A Really Good Day by Iolette Waldman. This book basically undid a bunch of like Christian propaganda I grew up with about psychedelics, and she had been on these SSRIs and taking them cyclically for PMDD. Because if she took the SSRIs all of the time, she felt kind of awful, and her psychiatrist had really worked on getting the dosage where she would take it in these cycles to help it kind of have its half-life, and that was all
Yeah.
well and good until she hit menopause. So her period was unpredictable. She was dealing with all of these hormone changes. It definitely was affecting her emotional state. She didn't want to be on the SSRIs all the time, but she couldn't reliably cycle them like she did. So she was complaining about it at a party. And then after the party, like a few days later, in her mailbox, she receives a letter from someone who just writes as themselves to be L. Carroll, like Lewis Carroll. And there is a vial with instructions for microdosing LSD.
Wow.
So for 30 days, she stops taking anything else at all. So she would smoke weed for pain. She would do, occasional pain meds. She had been on brain meds. She's like, okay. She tested it to make sure it was just LSD before she took it.
That's smart.
And yeah, but she took it for 30 days and wrote during all 30 days about how she felt, how it helped her mood, any experiences and stuff. And the book also talks a lot about the prohibition and why it was so prohibited here, even to study it, even to test a lot of psychedelics, right? Like not just LSD, but testing on psychedelics. When the U.S. government found out they couldn't use it to create sleeper agents and control people the way they wanted to, they were like, well, now nobody gets it. But I think it's definitely worth a read. It's really interesting. It taught me a lot about, because yes, we're not telling you to go use psychedelics, but it also did teach me about a bunch of safety stuff for those who are using psychedelics. It's also just a very good book. So that kind of undid...
Yeah, harm reduction purposes are valid too.
Yeah, so that undid a lot of the propaganda that I think a lot of us here have been taught about psychedelics for me.
And for part of my research, I looked into a little bit of what are the known efficacy levels for things like psychoactive therapy, psilocybin therapy, that sort of thing. And from what I can see, for psilocybin at least, after a single dose, within days or a week, the depressive symptoms in people with clinical depression were seen to just drop much faster than traditional antidepressants, which can often take weeks to actually fully take effect. Not only that, but the study showed that the benefits of psilocybin therapy can be very long lasting. After, again, a single dose, they had people reporting symptom reduction and remission rates that were sustained up to 6 months, and in some cases even a year or longer after just 1 or 2 administrations of psilocybin, which is just wow.
Yeah.
They also showed 71% of participants showed a clinically significant response, and 58% were in remission at a 1-month follow-up. In patients with cancer-related distress, response rates for depression and anxiety range from 60 to 80% at 6.5 months after taking it, which is just, how are we not looking back into this and seeing, can we legalize this and make it safe, right? And reduce the harm,
Yeah, and there are a lot of places that are working on decriminalizing it, and my therapist is certified for psychedelic assisted therapy. It is a legitimate thing, and he's had to learn a lot to do that. And I see him via telehealth, or else I would be like, sign me up, chief. Yeah, it has healing capabilities, and I think it's interesting that indigenous wisdom has long known that these things are healing and good for the person and have really profound effects on you mentally. And it's just really typical that we're just like, oh, maybe these are actually good for something, when indigenous folks all over the world have been like, yeah, we wicked knew that thousands of years ago.
Exactly. And it's really kind of unfortunate, because even the modern research that we're doing, from what I can see, seems to be involving really small sample sizes and predominantly white communities and participants. And not only that, all of the studies saying that it's very safe and very effective, it's all in a super hyper controlled environment. It's never take this and then just let us know how you feel. It's always very a medical setting, right? It's always very medical, which I think plays a big role, because the psychology of the person, the emotional state of the person, is such a big factor in how this stuff works. So I feel like that is probably affecting the results some potentially. And then I also see some people say, there's so much risk involved if you have a quote unquote bad trip of re-traumatizing yourself. In the research that I saw, most of the actual side effects that I saw generally were things like headache, nausea, temporary increases in blood pressure and heart rate, just mild to very moderate things that you would expect with something like this, but very, very little. There's no dependence that people are seeing.
Yeah.
There's no abuse or anything that people are seeing. It's all just very like minimal side effects. And I think people historically from, the 60s and stuff are really overblowing the whole bad trip.
Yeah.
Like how likely that is to happen.
Yeah. Like for me, the worst that's happened, and I joked about Great British Bake Off. Mm-hmm. I knew the first time I did LSD, it was kicking in because I was just getting really stressed out at how long it took Paul Hollywood to tell the bakers what he thought of their cakes after taking a bite. And I was like, I see their pain. I see the pain in their eyes. Release them from this, Paul. And then I was like, this is stressing me out. And James is like, oh, I think the LSD is kicking in. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm not seeing their pain. It's just the just the awareness of, hey, it's actually fine. No one's being hurt. You're doing okay. And then with LSD, just the next day, I had like a mild headache in the morning. I took some Tylenol to re-up the autism. You understand, but also for the headache.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And like I like I said, I haven't tried LSD, mushrooms, or anything. I've never tried any hallucinogenic substances before. The most I've done is legal marijuana, and like that's not.
I've done the
not
illegal
generally
kind
hallucinogenic.
that came out of someone's backpack. I had to pick the seeds out of it.
Back in my day, we didn't have a dispensary.
They asked you what kind you wanted, and it was the kind that they had. It came in a bag. It was full of seeds.
You had to meet somebody in a back alley and buy some goddamn popcorn is what they called it.
Named Victor, and he'd smoke some of what you just bought from him.
Just to show you it was legit. And it wasn't oregano.
And make you watch Cowboy Bebop with him.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, that's my little mushroom talk about psilocybin mushrooms and these new interesting mushrooms that come from China and Papua New Guinea, and just
I'm excited to
so
see
much
what they learn
stuff
about the human brain from that. It was also making me think, I don't know how much you know about ayahuasca.
Very little.
With ayahuasca, there is a very common theme of seeing snakes when you've taken ayahuasca.
Oh,
so much so that I believe one of the indigenous names for it means like snake plant.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm surprised that didn't come up in any of my research because I was looking specifically for other substances that cause specific hallucinations, and I was having trouble finding anything. Most of the hallucinations that people have on psilocybin are very general. It's motion, it's colors, it's shapes, it's nothing. It's not snakes, it's not tiny people, right? So yeah.
So it's like, it's not like, it's specifically like sometimes people will see snakes, and then from what I've heard, also like these snakes like moving through the body, which is perceived as like a cleansing thing. But I was researching that for writing at one point, and I was like, ayahuasca sounds cool, but the barfing you do beforehand, I would rather be hit by a car than barf. So
that doesn't sound very fun. But yeah, this Len Maoa Asiatica, I really hope that we get some more research on this soon, and I can't wait to see like what the substance is that causes this, because assuming it is something specific to this mushroom, that means you could essentially just get like, in theory, right, we could have a pill that makes you see tiny people. Like, it's just bonkers to me.
For what reason? Bored.
For what reason? I mean, hey, potentially treating PTSD, right? Who knows, right? We haven't.
Well, Does it say that it has sort of the like mind opening effects, ego death sort of thing that other psychedelics have?
It doesn't. It says it's completely different from what is being described
Yeah,
here.
so it sounds
I
like
don't know.
it sounds like there wouldn't be therapeutic use for it.
But there might be. So most of the people that take this, it seems fairly pleasant from what I understand, although it sounds very strange. I don't know. I'm just saying
Yeah, it's
there
hard
might be
to
a
describe.
therapeutic.
Maybe. But like the experience with the other ones, like the reason that men are like, whoa, I realize other people have feelings when they take mushrooms or something or do LSD for the first time. It's like the kind of ego death I've only ever otherwise experienced, like being out in the middle of the ocean scuba diving kind of ego death, except I was just laying in my own bed. So I feel like they would mention that about like, oh, also I realized I am just a tiny part of the infinite cosmos and I come from stars and
Yeah.
nothing that's stressing me out today is going to be that major tomorrow. So, that kind of thing. I feel like they would have mentioned that about the little elf mushrooms, but
Yeah. So I don't know if I said it earlier, but the name in Chinese is Jian Shu Xing, which apparently means turns blue in hand, because the mushroom, when you like handle it or cut it, turns like a purpley blue, apparently.
ooh, pretty.
Yeah, I saw it's like normally kind of yellow, and like it's a pretty big mushroom, kind of like a porcini, right? But from what I could see, if you cut it, if you handle it roughly at all, it turns like that bluish purple and like bruises, which is really interesting.
You'll stop handling it roughly.
Yeah, be nice. Be nice to
Be
it.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Now I just want some mushrooms, not even the magical kind. I just like really want to go make something with mushrooms in it.
Yeah, honestly, like a big sandwich with mushrooms in it sounds really good, like a mushroom melt or something. Some vegan cheese.
Hey friends, before I get to the housekeeping section, I have a special both mutual aid opportunity to help my community in particular, and an opportunity for you to get some, I hate to say merch, but merch kind of. So for those of you unaware, which I found that some of our international friends are, we live in Minneapolis. We moved to Minneapolis from Texas because Texas was proving unsafe for us as a visibly queer polycule. And we were right. There'd be a $100,000 fine for Violet just using a public restroom there now. And we are in Minneapolis, where the government has sent in 3,000 ICE agents. The National Guard is coming in, and Trump has 1,500 troops ready because he is probably going to declare martial law here. Our neighbors are being stolen. People are dying. I am recording this the day before this episode is published, which is not what I usually do because I've been so behind. And right before this, I had to hear that another neighbor of mine was pinned down and shot multiple times by ICE and murdered in the street. I'm not putting a trigger warning on it because, quite honestly, I've been kind of sick of people saying they don't want to keep up with the news because it's too upsetting, because we're living it. So we're doing a lot of things ourselves to try to support our community, but Violet thought of a great way for you all to help from no matter where you are, and that is through buying a Fuck Ice sticker from our merch hub. Our merch hub is balanaarts.com, and 100% of the proceeds of the Fuck Ice stickers will be going to Community Aid Network Minnesota, or CAN-MN if you want to look them up. It is a mutual aid coalition in Minnesota that works together to redistribute goods and money and services to the people of Minnesota so we all can lead healthy lives with dignity and the material support we need. And they're doing a lot right now because a lot of my neighbors are not safe to leave their homes because ICE is ramming cars into other cars. There are empty cars on the street where they've pulled people out. They're taking children. We have community members having to guard daycare centers to make sure people's babies aren't taken from them. So the stickers are in the shop right now. I will be posting for transparency every time we do a donation to CanMN. But yeah, you could materially support my neighbors. And that's all I can really do right now, is try to do something, because action is the antidote to despair, and it is really hard to keep making stuff and feel like any of it really matters right now, but we're going to keep doing it. And if you want to do something that materially supports the people around me and my neighbors and the people who have welcomed us here with open arms and have been so kind when our own home was not safe, you can do that by going to the merch hub, balanaarts.com. It's in the show details. And yeah, I'm excited to see if we can earn some to give to the community. The stickers have a suggested donation, so if you would like to spend more on the sticker, no matter how much you spend on the sticker, it is just going directly to mutual aid. And I will be posting that on my social media as we donate. But yeah, so now that that is out of the way, I would like to thank our Patreon supporters, like Anarchista, Bethany Glass, Carl Brooks, Chamberlain Foreman, Fintago, Dave Perrell, Gus, Helen Clifford, Janice Weston, Kate Genius, Kate Michigoose, Laura Kramer, Lilith Rain, Lucy, Megan E., Natasha Neves, Nunya B., Percy, Rachel Rachelson, Randy Lovings, and Sewing Seraph. I'm going to be really short with the usual housekeeping section because, honest to God, I just want to go in my room and cry. But you know how to help us, and that's telling other people about the show. We don't take paid ads. We don't pay for advertising. We grow entirely by word of mouth, so the more you can post about the show and tell other people about it, that helps us out a ton. If you're in a place to support us financially, the show details has a link to our Patreon page. It's got rewards for everything we do. And if you, and this is going to sound silly, if you want some support and a supportive little corner of the internet to go to, I really recommend joining our Discord server. I am so grateful at the absolute certified sweethearts that the stuff we make attracts, and it is a great honor that such good people listen to the stuff we make. It is so rewarding, and if you want to get to know some of those very good eggs, the link to our Discord server is in the show details. I know I'm a bummer today. I'm not going to apologize it, but thank you all for everything, and until next time, clever sign off.